Before Christine, there was simply the car. James Brolin leads a movie about a killer automobile that's clearly inspired by the success of Jaws. It's a novel way to cash in on a new hit, but we can't really fault them in terms of entertaining ideas. Let's see if it lives up to its glorious B-movie potential. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me on a cold, dark, scary road today is Tim.
Vroom vroom.
This is a horror movie podcast, and over on our Patreon we had a vote for 3 movies about vehicles, and somehow the famous movie about a car killing people, directed by John Carpenter based on a Stephen King book, did not win. Instead, our patrons, I guess, thought it'd be funny to vote for the car instead. So that's what we're doing today.
Some sick freaks, those patrons.
Yes. So this is 1977's The Car, starring James Brolin and a bunch of other people that I'll get to in a minute. But this is... the best way to describe this, honestly, is that Jaws was a success. They wanted to rip it off, but with a car instead of a shark. And that's what this is.
What was Jaws just the year before?
2 years, so 75, and then this is 77.
All right, that tracks.
So it's about the right amount of time to make a rip-off.
Yeah.
Just the right amount of time. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities you can point to in this, but we'll get into everything as well. We'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and if you are enjoying the show...
We'll give you a honk.
We'll give you a honk. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. You can get bonus content for Screams After Midnight over on our Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. So, yes, we'll get into it. So yeah, that hack Stephen King ripped this movie off. Actually, I say that. I have no idea what year the book Christine came out, but yes, this is 77.
Yeah, and it's probably... I mean, it is hard because sometimes he does start books rather early and then leaves them or comes back to them or whatever, but I would feel like Christine would probably be about this time-ish, because I think... Do you remember when the Carrie movie came out? Because I feel like it didn't come out that long after the book.
76.
Okay, yeah, so Carrie had probably just coming out, and I mean, he did put out a lot of books pretty fast, but I feel like he still would have had to put out Salem's Lot, I believe was his second book.
I've googled it to save your turmoil.
Okay.
No, the book didn't come out until April 1983, so...
Oh, okay, so yeah, that's a bit of time then.
Yeah, that's actually quite close to the movie, because the movie's not that long after that, I don't think. A couple of years, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a car with a mind of its own that is killing people. That's the premise. That's all you need. That's your one-line description. Had you seen this before, Tim?
I actually have. And I think somewhat recently, like I want to say within the last 2 to 3 years or so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those ones that was randomly streaming, or I saw someone talking about it and wanted to check it out. But yeah, I wasn't completely sure if I'd seen it before, but then as soon as you got to the scene with the guy and his was it his French horn or whatever, I was like, oh, I very specifically remember this scene.
Yes, notably a French horn and not a bugle.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd seen it before as well. I saw it, like, I bought the Arrow Blu-ray and watched it maybe, like, I don't know, 2012, something like that. It's over a decade. So I didn't really remember a whole lot beyond just that James Brolin was in it and the premise. Like, I didn't remember a single scene. Well, barring one. I kind of remembered one vague scene, but other than that, I'd forgotten everything. So
yeah, I got this confused with another movie because, you know, there's a very
Christine,
famous...
Yes.
No, not Christine. I think there's actually even a more, well, at least maybe famous to like cult car horror people. I might be wrong. I'm trying to think if this was maybe from like Body Bags or something, but I don't know if you know the movie I'm talking about where there's like a car that literally like comes up from the ground.
I mean, I've seen Body Bags, but I don't really remember the stories all in the first one because it was the only one that I liked. But
yeah, I mean, I could totally be conflating it with something else. But there's like a scene where it's also about like, yeah, this car chasing people down, and then I think they're like, oh, we finally got away or something, and then like it literally like comes up from the ground. I was thinking that scene was in this movie, but
No,
no.
no, it's not in here. Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get into it. As far as well, actually, before we get to the cast and stuff, I'll just ask the basic question, see how we feel. Tim, how did you feel about the car?
I enjoy it. I think it is actually one of the more successful Jaws ripoffs. We could do like a whole month full of like, there's so many like, Jaws but with a bear, or Jaws with a pig or something like. And yeah, I mean, you're not wrong when you say, yeah, it is literally just Jaws with a car. But I think it does enough to be entertaining, maybe a little slow at parts, but it's not super dull. And I think what it does well that a lot of other ripoffs, I feel like doesn't really do a great job of is actually do come to care for the characters a little bit. Again, they're not as deep or as interesting as the characters in Jaws, but I don't know, that opening scene with James Brolin and his girlfriend and his daughters, like I think that is pretty touching, and actually found myself getting a lot of charm for the characters from that. Maybe not as many like secondary characters that I cared about as much, and then the stakes never really feel as high as like Amityville, 4th of July weekend, politics and all this stuff. Like instead of 4th of July, in this movie you have like marching band practice, which isn't I don't feel like those are necessarily equal in terms of like stakes and high pressure and whatnot. But I don't know, like the movie's not amazing, but I have a fun time with it. I think it's like a pretty decent watch.
Yeah, I think it's a solid B movie that is honestly, watching it again tonight, I found it surprisingly well directed at points. I think what's weird about it is I think the only scene with the car itself that I found disappointing was probably the extended climax, because I thought that was the least interesting the car was in the whole movie. But every other scene with the car, the way it teases the car like it's a slasher villain, the way it disguises because the first few scenes with the car does something, you only see like a POV shot, or you see like just a corner of the tire or something. Like it does a good job of like, despite being broad daylight, treating it like no, we're treating this like a slasher film where we're saving the mask until later. It's actually 40 plus minutes out of the movie before you actually get a good look at the whole car and see what it actually looks like. And a big part of that is that a lot of characters keep sort of trying to describe what they saw, and I think you, as the audience, genuinely don't know how accurate they're being, to be honest. Like when someone says, what color was the car, and someone's like, maybe gray or black or possibly blue. And honestly, I'm sitting there going, honestly, any of those could be right, because I don't think I saw enough of it to actually know the color of the car. So I think it's well directed. I think it does lose its pacing a little bit in kind of the back half. I do think there's like a sort of big moment about halfway through. After that, it kind of loses a little bit of steam. Then it's got a big moment again, which is quite good, but then it loses a bit of steam again. And I never really thought about it, but I think I agree with what you were saying, is that it doesn't ramp up enough. And I think part of why the climax is a little disappointing to me is, one, because visually it's kind of uninteresting because of like this weird sort of day for night, but it's like dawn time kind of like thing they're going for. But also, you're right, the stakes don't feel it doesn't feel like they're like just about to stop it in the nick of time before something bad's about to happen. It just kind of feels like, oh, this is just the time for the climax, so we're having the climax. I've got more thoughts that I can say in spoilers, but I do agree. And maybe something where, there's like a big group of people in town for some reason that are at risk. Maybe they felt that was too close to Jaws or something. But to be fair, Jaws never did that for its climax.
Right.
That was like the halfway through Jaws, and then Jaws that obviously it's more of a hunt because it's hard to find the shark kind of thing. But yeah, honestly, it's surprisingly solid. And I was thinking for the first like half hour, 40 minutes that this is actually pretty good, and I still think it's good. By the end, but I do think, okay, I can see why it's maybe not quite achieved that cult movie like love status that I in the first half I felt like, why is this movie not more loved? But by the time I got to the end I went, okay, I can actually see why it's not more loved. It's kind of it does let itself down a little bit as it goes on, which is a shame, but by and large I have fun.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not bad. It's just, it doesn't reach that height of being like amazing or like maybe a cult classic or something. But I think it certainly is a good watch. Like, I don't really, I didn't mind watching it even, again after, a few years or whatever. I do think they do a good job of like personifying the car because, like, it is tricky to, I feel like it is a little easier with like an animal or something that's, like flesh and bone and stuff to kind of give them type of characteristics or feel like, they're hunting or stalking you. And I feel like it's a little bit harder for, a machine, unless it's like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. But like, just like
that's a bit different. That's a killer robot with a human face. It's a little bit different than a car.
But I think they do actually like, do a good job of making the car feel like this like entity. It feels
almost like it's got a little bit of personality. Well, maybe not personality, maybe more of a Michael Myers-esque kind of.
Right.
And to be fair, this was a year before Halloween, so it's not like they were even intentionally trying to like take that from that, but
that would be great. You just see the car just like peering out from a bush.
Nah, we're in the desert. There's no bushes here, Tim. No bushes. So no, I think the other thing with the climax that maybe is that the sense of geography is kind of lost. It feels like it's just lots and lots of deserty roads and cliffs and stuff. I get what the plan is in the last chunk of the movie, but I never really felt like a nice clear sense that I always understand how close they were to pulling it off, how far they were from pulling it off, like when it felt like it was falling apart. I never quite got those feelings, so there wasn't that sort of roller coaster of like, oh, almost, oh no, this is bad, oh, like I never quite got that feeling for me. So
and it just does feel like a little like the setting, it just isn't super interesting to me. Like, just like you're saying, it's just a lot of like rocks and desert and stuff, and just driving around there, it's not visually striking.
So that's kind of my biggest complaint, but for the most part, I have fun with it. So as I said, the cast, we have James Brolin, who you may know as Josh Brolin's father. Just to, he's the lead. He is the sort of the main cop that we follow.
Is he the dad from Amityville?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of horror connection there.
Yeah, I honestly had forgotten that was him until you said it, but I think you're right. So we got him. We got Kathleen Lloyd as his love interest. He's a divorced dad with 2 daughters, but he's got like a new girlfriend who's a school teacher. So that's all established. We'll get into that more in spoilers, but we have some other faces here. There's sort of like an angry husband who's a bit of a wife beater who feels like he's going to have a big arc at the start of the movie, but it kind of dwindles and we just kind of forget about it later on. But he's played by R.G. Armstrong, who notably is the Colonel in Predator, which is where I recognized him from.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that gives Arnold and his team the orders at the start of the movie. Cool. But, so, interestingly, right, so there was a name that I recognized in the credits, right? Mm-hmm. Kim Richards sounded familiar, and I'm like, who's Kim Richards? So I Google Kim Richards. Turns out she's a socialite, bizarrely, but she's in Assault on Precinct 13. And I went, that's where I recognize the name. Who was she in that? I'm assuming she was a little girl, just because it makes the most sense. But what's so funny is when I pulled up IMDb, I noticed Kyle Richards is also there, who I'm pretty sure is the little girl in Halloween. So somehow John Carpenter worked with, I assume they're sisters, because they're both socialites. Sense. Like, because I know Kyle Richards went on to be on like Housewives of whatever neighborhood was the TV show.
Right.
But yeah, I just think it's interesting. They're both in this, and they've both been in different John Carpenter movies. One right before this, and one right after it. Just a weird bit of trivia.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I think that was his kids. I want to say. Yeah, that's his kids.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're actually sisters in the movie.
Nice.
I assume the smaller one is Kale, but I mean, just guessing. As well, I could go back and check and sort of like, okay, which one looks like the kid from Halloween? But I wasn't thinking about that as I was watching it because I didn't realize the kid from Halloween was in this.
Right, yeah. Well, we'll see if they do the 50 years later legacy sequel to the car. Maybe they'll bring him back.
Somehow I doubt that's getting that treatment. Somehow I doubt that.
What do you call it? A Cybertruck? No.
Cybertruck. The ghost of Musk just driving around. Also, Ronny Cox is in this movie, who you might know from RoboCop and Total Recall.
Okay.
He's the cop with the drinking problem. That's Ronny Cox.
That sounds like him.
Okay. Do you even know who I'm talking about, Tim? Do you remember him from RoboCop?
Not off the top of my head, no. I'm sure if I saw him, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is about 10 years before then, so...
he drank a lot since then.
I think that was just a character, Tim, not necessarily the actor.
So, I've seen a lot of things in my time. There's this car that, let me tell you.
What, you think he moved to Detroit and like became a high-level executive at OCP because of the trauma with the car?
Well, maybe you wanted to make sure that what happened to him never happened to anyone else, so they had to design a robotic cop to take down these road cars.
That's why he builds Ed 209. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. That was a notable cast that stuck out to me. Not that I knew all. I mean, I didn't know who Kathleen Lloyd was. I don't think I've seen her in anything else. But she's kind of the co-lead in a lot of ways of the movie, so it seems worth mentioning her. When I click on her name, the first thing she's known for is the car, which is not a sign that she had a huge career. She was in 21 episodes of Magnum P.I. though, so I guess that's something.
Huh. How many decimals can you count up to in Magnum P.I.?
Is that a pie joke?
Yeah.
That may be one of the worst jokes you've ever said, Tim. I'm not gonna lie.
My math heads out there will like it.
Math heads? Does that make sound like meth heads? I mean, your puns are they're struggling. I'm a fan of a dumb pun, but you're really pushing it.
Oh, speaking of pushing it, this car, it can really push some buttons.
It can push some people off the road.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, actually, what I was saying about how all the scenes with the car are shot really well, that is true. The one little nitpick though is that they clearly didn't have a good way of showing the impact when it hits someone, so those always feel like awkward edits, just to sort of, I feel like really old school with the way it would just sort of like almost hit them, then it'd cut to a shot of the person going ah and like falling over. I never quite felt like it was smooth or fit into the scene as well as it should be. It felt really old school in that sense, but I didn't mind it too much though, because it kind of added to the charm, I guess. Yeah,
and I think they still do manage to come up with like some cool and diverse like ways of the car killing people. So we'll get to that in spoilers, but
yeah, there's one about 2/3 in that's actually quite fun and how just over the top it is. So yeah, all right, well there you go. That's probably what we can do in spoiler free, so we'll give the warning. Spoilers, you've been warned for the car from 1977. We're going to dive in. So the movie, after a lengthy opening title sequence, which by the way, they gave so many actors credits in the opening title, because usually the opening titles only do the top, maybe 8 or 10 names, depending on how many people are in the movie. I swear there was like 8 walls of names in a row of like 6 or 7 names just over. Like they were crediting everyone in the opening titles. They were like, no, we're not leaving anyone behind. It was strange. But like I said, we get this sequence of
introducing Ford Chevy as the car.
Well, you make that a joke, Tim, but they go out of their way for this to be a non-branded car. Like, you can't tell. I mean, if anything, I would say it looks kind of like a Rolls Royce, just based on what I think a Rolls Royce looks like. But I mean, that's just. I'm not a car person. But but it has the grill in the middle and it has the big, you know, but they've clearly painted it and they've coated all the windows. Although I suspect that's more to do with hiding the driver that's in the car for filming the movie than it is about it being menacing. But regardless, still fun. But yeah, it has kind of a sort of like, oh, this is not a manufactured car kind of look. It looks, you know, like it's at the very least altered, if nothing else. But no, I mean, the opening introduces that you get this POV shot from like behind the glass, and it never feels silly, because part of me thought, oh, it'd be very easy to make a Naked Gun joke here and start going do 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 do. But I didn't, because it didn't look quite the same. They didn't just stick a hood on under the camera with a light and called it a day.
It felt like, you know, speaking of like Predator vision, this felt like car vision. Yeah,
especially since it's got that tinted window, so it's got that sort of yellow, kind of ugly tint.
Piss colored.
What?
Piss colored.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you were making a joke, and I was like,
it looked and tasted like piss.
What do you mean tasted? Who's tasting anything? Oh dear. Yeah, anyway, one of the things I appreciate in the opening scene is that it's a super wide shot, and you just see like, the car is basically a dot in the distance moving, and you can tell it's a car, but it's so far away, so even though it's broad daylight in the desert, in whatever, I don't even know, did they ever even say if this was Nevada or California? I presume it's one of those states, but I mean...
It could be New Mexico, or maybe Arizona... That general, those four has to be one of those.
Yeah, one of those in that vicinity, yes. But they never, I don't think, quite mention what state they're in. Maybe it's like there in the background somewhere if you're looking for it, but I never caught it. But
at one point, someone's just like, man, things have gotten crazy in New York City.
What is this, the post-apocalyptic version of New York City? No, so... This opening scene is basically the car hunting down two cyclists. There's this couple, this guy and a girl. What?
Cyclists? Think they own the road?
Was you rooting for the car in this scene, Tim?
They were a little full of themselves.
Yes. They even make an effort to like, okay, let's go into the, you know, over to the edge of the road, so because this car that we can hear coming behind us gets past. But yeah, I really enjoyed how they shot some of this stuff, because they do a whole thing here where they go into a tunnel, and it's like pitch black in there, right, because of the exposure of the camera, and they come out the other side of the tunnel, and we see the POV of the car getting into the tunnel, and then we just see like a little bit of the like glisten, but you can't quite see it. But they really, there's like a shot afterwards of like the opening of the tunnel where they've just come out from, and you're just kind of waiting for a few seconds for the car to come out, and just as it starts to come out is when it cuts, so you don't get a good look at it. But it really sort of, you know, it has that thing of like, oh, when's it coming out of the darkness? Like they achieved that moment in the opening scene, which is quite impressive. But yeah, the car chases down first the girl, because she's in the back of the two cyclists. Sort of runs her into this little wall that's next to the road until she sort of falls off at the end. And then the car chases down the guy and rams him off the side when they're crossing a bridge, so he falls dramatically to his death. And
I thought this was pretty cool. I like the shot of him falling over the road or bridge or whatever.
Yeah, and if you can't show the impact, then don't try. Don't give us a crappy dummy hitting the ground. Just
right, yeah.
You know, just it cuts away at the right time where you hear like a, I don't know if it's the rev of the engine or what, but they timed like a sound from the car to be when the body would have landed. So you so it felt like you got the impact of it, even though you didn't see or hear it. you heard something else instead. But because of the way it was edited together, it felt like you got the satisfaction of the whoa, you know, like you got it at the right time. It was a nice little bit of trickery to give you the satisfaction and not make it feel like you were left hanging, but without actually having to show a body hit the ground.
I bet that guy wishes he was left hanging.
I'll just let the silence of the audience just sit there.
You know, these sick freaks are laughing their butts off.
This tactic you've taken to recently of calling our fans freaks constantly is, I don't know how it's paying off, Tim, but we'll see. I'll see if the numbers go up. It's possible.
They'll either go way up or way down. Either way, we'll be happy with the results.
Oh dear. So we're introduced to our main character, Wade. I thought it was Wayne, to be honest. I never realized they were saying Wade. But yes, Wade, who is a deputy, and his dad was the sheriff once upon a time. His dad's now dead or whatever. But yeah, there's a sort of nice scene here at the start where it kind of shows how playful him and his girlfriend are, where they got together last night, but he fell asleep because it had been a long day, and she's kind of teasing him for it. So he's like, hey, we got 10 minutes. We can do it right now. So they start sort of chasing each other around and making a lot of jokes and whatever. But it's all in good fun. The other thing, though, is that his two daughters are, like, got their ears pressed up against the door and they're listening to what's going on. And she's like, hey, I need to, like, leave quick before the kids get up so they don't see me. But the kids clearly know this is going on. In fact, when he's taking them to school, which, by the way, he rides both daughters on the back of his bike. I mean, he makes them wear a helmet, but he's riding free. He's raw dogging it, if you will. So, but it sets up that they know. They even say, hey, why does Miss So-and-so always leave before we get up for school? And he's like, what do you mean? So we find out she's a teacher at the school, which is why they're naming her like that, because that's what they know her as. And it sets up, it sets up a lot of things. It sets up that he's kind of the single dad, that he's divorced from his wife. The wife never shows up or appears. We never get a sense if the daughter's just visiting him because he shares custody, or did they live permanently with him. I don't know if we ever actually get, like, even a hint of an answer to that, but
I assume the wife is the car. or at the very least is inhabiting the car somehow. Okay.
You didn't think it was like a demon from hell, which is what I thought they implied at the end, but
I mean, that's what, that's what an ex-wife sounds like.
See, you can make jokes like this just now because you're married, but when she becomes an ex-wife, Tim, you're going to regret these words and deeds. You're going to be looking over your shoulder every day when you're going out.
You're not wrong.
Oh dear. So yeah, it sets up the characters well enough. It gives you a reason to think, oh, they're likable enough. They get on. Kids are cute, whatever, with their questions. Yeah. It's all fine.
I do think it is, like, really charming. Like, the way they kind of banter back and forth. It's very cute. And yeah, it was nice to see, like, that. I mean, I'm joking about it, but it was kind of nice that, like, he's divorced, but so many times in movies, like, there's like a bit of, like, conflict with that, where it's either like, he's fighting for custody of the kids, or, like, the kids hate the new mom or girlfriend or whatever, or the parents are constantly fighting. It's kind of nice to see that it's like, oh yeah, he's just, like, he's a normal guy, he's divorced. It's it doesn't really seem to, like, be this, like, huge thing. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, if the kids are living with him permanently, it does make you wonder, like, like, what's up with the mum then? What, is she in prison? Is she, like, a junkie or something? Like, why is she not getting, like, visitations?
It's a good point.
Maybe she doesn't want them. Maybe she's an awful human being. Maybe she ran away with some man and she's off in another country starting a new life. Maybe she's just an evil person. That's possible.
Could be.
I don't know. The movie gives me nothing one way or the other. Like, the mother could be a saint for all I know, but the movie gives me nothing one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she is, adopted 30 other kids and she just didn't have as much time for these two. So
it's a bold play, but yeah. I mean, it is telling perhaps how quickly these two kids are like, yeah, we're cool with you marrying this new woman. She seems nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also say, as long as we can still do some of the chores and make dinner. And I'm like, or if you want to. I mean, most kids would hate doing those things, but all right.
I think it's like, when you're young enough, you actually do like doing that stuff. I think you just reach a point where, like, once you discover you know, video games and TV, and you'd much rather be doing that. 'Cause, like right now, my kids are always happy when they're like, "Oh, I get to like clean this up or whatever." And I mean, they're never good at it, so it doesn't really help much. But, yeah.
Let's imagine you stand behind them, just chastising them. What the hell, you stupid little shits! That's not how that's how you scrub. Wax on, wax off. Come on.
The sad thing is, it's usually ends up being more work because it's like if they want to help, then, and it's cute at least, but you know, just let me do my thing.
You're begging for the video games and TV until, of course, then you just want them to help because they're old enough to do it properly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't wait till you know, my son can help me beat some of the bosses in Dark Souls.
I thought you were going to say help do the dishes, but no, you went to help beat the bosses in Dark Souls. Son, you have the dexterity. You've got nimble fingers. Come on now. You have the reflexes.
Come on, son, you can solo her. I believe in you.
That's a dodgy sentence to say about your son.
I'm making a popular video game reference. Come on.
Yeah, but you could have picked any pronoun. It just sounded dodgy because you said her.
I thought all the bosses in Dark Souls are females.
What, did you go around the park and look up all the skirts? No, they're not all female bosses, Tim.
All right, well, live and learn. Oh boy, am I gonna get cancelled now?
What, for assuming all the Dark Souls bosses were women? I don't think so. I don't know what possible problematic thing that suggests. Oh dear. Anyway, so the next scene with the car is we were introduced to the asshole character, this Amos guy who kind of like beats up his wife, which sadly doesn't get that much of a resolution. I don't know if it's meant to be like a redemption that he helps with at the end, but they kind of force him to help, so it's not even like he turns over a new leaf. I was expecting him to die at the end because I thought, oh, he deserves it. He's an asshole.
I guess I'm assuming the movie is maybe just a little too early, because if this was made nowadays and it was the same character, absolutely he's getting like the worst comeuppance you can think of. But I don't know if it's just at the time that it was like,
well, you say that, but they actually set it up because like they do a whole thing with the sheriff's like begging the wife to like sign the papers to like say you're pressing charges. Like they set up that the cops know what he's doing and they want the wife to give the go ahead to arrest him, but she keeps defending him.
Point, yeah.
Which feels like at the very least, like you expect her to finally leave him at the end or something, and grow the strength to like stand up for herself, but it never does anything like that. It just goes away. So it's kind of weird. But as we're introducing him though, there's a hitchhiker outside his house playing his French horn, who kind of tries to interject when he sees him being rough with the wife, and he's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be hitting the lady. And he's like, what are you doing? And he starts yelling at the guy, piss off my property, stop playing your stupid bugle, whatever it is. So the hitchhiker's got a bit of attitude and kind of, flips him off afterwards. In fact, the guy, the Amos says to him, if I hear that horn again, I'm going to kick it so far up your ass that you'll be farting music for a year. And the hitchhiker just like takes that and just rolls with it for like a minute, where he's like, farting music? That sounds amazing. Like, he just starts like farting noises with his mouth. But the car then shows up, of course, and he thinks he's going to get a ride. He puts out his thumb and he's like, oh, hey, there's a car coming, great. And he's like, oh, I hope this is a 34-year-old nymphomaniac. Oh, and she wants to take me to a pool and do bad things to me. I'm like, you're being very optimistic here, right? I get it. I hope every day I'll meet a nymphomaniac. I really do. But be very optimistic.
I mean, just because someone's a nymphomaniac, like they can still have standards. Like it's not like they're just.
Han, are you saying this about the hitchhiker or about me?
We'll let the audience decide who they think that was in reference to.
I think any nymphomaniac would be happy to have me, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'll put in a good reference for you. They're,
It's not a job, Tim. You don't give them references. Also, if they were to get references, why would it be from you and not like someone else who's had sex with me? Like, surely the reference they would want would be a previous sexual partner to say, yes, good at this, and this, not so good at this. You know, tick the boxes.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll let the audience decide.
Oh, great! Now you've started some fan fiction about me and you. That's great, Tim. That's great.
I gotta talk to HR after this. I'm sure.
Aye, but you. Not me. I'm innocent in this.
HR is Connor, by the way.
No, that's a horrible idea. What are you talking about? Having him as HR. I've not seen that Netflix show. I think you should leave or whatever it's called, but I have seen the gif of the we're all looking for the guy who did this. Right. So I'm just imagining Connor in the hot dog suit saying we're all looking for the guy who did this. That's him as the head of HR.
That sounds about right, yeah.
What the hell's this? Oh yeah, so he's hitchhiking, right? And he's got his thumb out, and the car's coming down the road, but he's like, "Hey, slow down! You're not gonna like see me at this rate." Because it's a very dirty, dusty road, right? So, it's a desert road. It's kicking up a lot of sand and dirt. And when the car gets to him, there's basically just this cloud, right? And the car goes past him. The hitchhiker sort of dives out the way so he doesn't get hit. But then the car, sort of comes back. So the hitchhiker starts yelling, but he can't see the car. He just thinks the car's gone because of the cloud of, dirt that's been kicked up. He can't see, past, a few feet in front of him. But then the car comes darting back out of it and hits him, and then it's implied that it kind of runs back over him, then runs over him again to go away. And the asshole guy Amos kind of sees some of this because he's telling the cops in the next scene. But that's a fun scene. I think one of the things they did when they were coming up with this is, okay, what's the different types of scenarios where a car, at least before they know there's a car going around killing people, what sort of normal situations could turn threatening? Bicycle riders on the road, otherwise known as cyclists, a hitchhiker putting out his thumb and the car just comes up and hits them. You've thought of some of the different ways that it could be a normal situation turns deadly quickly because the car's lethal.
Yeah, and I don't want to say every time the car shows up it's an amazing unique thing, but I do feel like they do go out of their way to think of different scenarios, because it's you're very limited to what you can do with a car,
Yeah. To be fair, I think most of them do have either it does something different, or the context around is different, or at the very least it's shot very differently. So, I think from a direction point of view, they really thought about how to keep the car interesting and intimidating. And like you said earlier, kind of give it a little bit of personality. So I think that's a little bit here as well. But so I won't go through every scene, but this is kind of where, okay, this hitchhiker's been killed, the cops get involved, and then they find the cyclist a little bit later, and they're like, oh shit, is this the same car that did that to the hitchhiker? So at this point, they just think there's a maniac driving around in a car, so they're putting out a description, but all they have is maybe a black car, maybe. That's all they've got to go on. They don't have a make, they don't have a model. So it's okay, that's all we've really got. But it establishes some other things in this time. We see that the school's prepping for this marching band practice that both of his daughters are in, with the girlfriend teacher, Lauren, or Miss Humphreys, I guess they'll call her. And it establishes all these things. And we see the scene where the captain or the sheriff is trying to convince the wife of Amos to, charge him because she's got bruises all over her face. She doesn't, and the cops all just make a deal to go to the bar after work. There's not much more they can do that day, and they don't realize it's an impending threat. But then the sheriff goes outside because he notices a car off in the distance, and it's just parked. But it's dark, so you don't get quite a good look at the car yet. You get a better look here than you have so far. You see the grille at the front. But the car comes out, speeds past Amos. Amos dives out the way, and it hits the sheriff. So now James Brolin's character has been promoted. He's now the one in charge. He's the one calling the shots now. But this is where it kind of takes a turn. It's oh wait, no, this is a actual maniac stalking people. and like murdering more victims. We expect more of these now. We have to stop whoever this is. Obviously, they still think it's a person. And to an extent, I think most of them never really truly believe that there isn't a person. There's really only the one cop who actually starts to believe that there's something like that going on, as the movie does.
I mean, it's not like it's doing things that are very supernatural. Like,
no. I mean, I think after this, it starts to be implied that it gets windy before it shows up. So that's kind of supernatural. But yeah, nothing that would convince a bunch of people, because as far as we know as the audience, we never actually see inside the car to know that there's no one in there, really. There is one woman who says that she saw no one in the car, but...
Right, yeah.
Like
that's the big thing, is that, like, when they say, oh, there's no driver, like, that kind of makes you go, like, oh, huh.
Yeah. So I think it's implied there's no one inside the car, certainly, but at the same time, like, there could be. There's no reason why it couldn't be.
Yeah, the only after having seen the movie, the only thing that makes me feel like, oh, it definitely is supernatural is the ending. Very heavily implies that there's like something going on.
I think the ending, and I think there's a couple of other little things throughout. For example, the doors having no handles does feel a little bit like,
oh, that's true.
Okay, because no person's going inside, so it doesn't need to have handles. The fact that it can't go on hallowed ground also feels like a bit of a supernatural thing, Even that, though, like, you could say, like, oh, maybe the person that's driving it just didn't want to go there, or is superstitious or something. It's a stretch, but yeah, I mean, you could, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, in the real world, you'd rationalize it that way before you accept that there's a car driving on its own, probably, but, we're watching a movie, so we're like, no, it's supernatural, the car's got a mind of its own, which... That's the thing that maybe I'm thankful is not in this movie, but a modern movie, like if they remade this, I bet you they would do like a whole research scene where they would try and like they'd give it a reason why it's a car, like why some spirit or demon has possessed a car. There'd be a whole exposition, there'd be a trip to the library, they'd be looking through the old newspapers. Like, I guarantee you that'd be in a modern version of this movie.
100%. It's actually pretty refreshing that it's like, oh no, it's just this scary thing. And I mean, again, if you're comparing it to, stuff like Jaws or Halloween, like, there isn't really, the things are just like killers. Like, you don't need to know like everything about them.
Yes.
So it was nice.
Shark is shark because shark. That's
exactly
the logic of Jaws. So this is where things ramp up a little bit, and like, they're taking it seriously. They're putting all the cops out in different positions on like the various roads. There's only one main road out of town. It's a very small town surrounded by desert, so it sets up all this stuff. But the next big set piece is the marching band practice, which the drunk cop, who's secretly drunk again, but no one knows he's drinking again, forgets to cancel after Brolin tells him to. So the school have their marching band practice. So Miss Humphreys is there with all the kids, and they're doing the little routine. And I love the start of this scene, or the start of like the danger, because there's like a cop there sort of supervising it. And just often way in the distance in the desert, you can just see a glisten, right? You can catch it just like off guard. You might not even notice it immediately, but there's just a little glisten that if you catch, you go, wait, is that a car coming like miles in the distance? And then you see it glisten again, and you realize, oh shit, the car's coming for this, 24 kids that are marching out in this little track that they've got.
I don't know. It might just have something against horns. Like,
not true. I see the instruments. Yeah. Oh, that's it. We should mention the car does like to honk its horn after it's killed. It's kind of like it's celebrating. It's like, yeah, let's effing go! I just killed another one.
Or maybe it's just trying to tell people to get out of the way, but it's just a little bit delayed.
It's just accidentally killing people the whole movie, even though it's clearly targeting specific people later on and is vindictive. It's just accidental. Yes, it's just a klutzy car.
At some point, you just see the door finally opens and the person gets out. It's just the drunk cop. He just
oh, what a twist that would have been! It's just the drunk guy behind the wheel. Ronny Cox, you son of a bitch, you done it again. Dude. So, do you know what scene this is, though? This is the scene in Jaws about halfway through where the beach is packed, they've refused to close the beaches, and then the shark shows up, so they all run up out of the beach. That's this scene, because all the kids and the few teachers that are there all go running for cover, try to go up the bleachers or whatever, and they eventually, I mean, the car does get a few people, there's a couple of adults and horses and stuff it gets, but they eventually get to this little cemetery that's up, on this hill area, and the car can't come in. It just sort of gets to the entrance and won't come in. But I actually thought this was a second teacher who's like kind of a C-list character in that she kind of shows up a few times and she like looks after the kids later. But she like climbs the fence, right, when the car's around the other side of the cemetery. And I thought, is she just a coward running away? She's not. She's actually running to the cop car so she can call for help. Which is, so fair enough, she's actually doing something heroic. She's risking herself to get help there for everyone else. But, so all the cops are on their way. They're like, okay, this is terrible. Everyone's coming. But notably what happens here is that Miss Humphreys tries to sort of distract the car so it can't, like, because she's like saying, hey, we need to try and keep it at bay. So she basically just starts getting up and badmouthing it and saying, why aren't you coming in, you chicken shit? You're pathetic, you stupid car. And she's just, yelling and heckling it basically the whole time, which turns out to be a mistake because it makes her a target later on. But she does give it what for. And the kids are all very impressed by her bravery. So they try and chase the car when the cops show up, and Brolin's on his bike, some of the others are in the cars. They try and do that. I actually can't remember which particular car death happens at the end of this sequence, because it gets away. I'm sure it kills someone as it's getting away, one of the cops during the chase, but I don't remember how exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this
is this the one that ends up with Brolin like cornering it, and then like he goes up because the car stops, and then Brolin goes up to the door, and the door opens, and then the door hits him in the face.
Yeah, that could be about this time.
I think that is this time actually. I guess that chase goes on long enough. I didn't realize that followed up from the marching practice like scene, the chaos scene, but. I do have a question. This is maybe one of the first things that made me go, wait, why? Is like, why didn't it just kill him like it has done everyone else? Like, there's no reason why it just knocks him out.
Great question.
Like, there's no reason. Know. Like, yeah. Like there's no sense of a plan or sense of that it's trying to achieve something, or that, there's no reason why it shouldn't just kill him like everyone else. But for some reason, it lures him in and knocks him out, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. It just senses that he's like a worthy foe.
He's like mano a mano. Oh, you're a worthy, like the Predator. The Predator's like, oh, yeah. Arnold, you're my opponent. You're the best I've got here.
Yeah, it's like you're the one person in town that can take me on. Like we'll save our duel.
Okay. Interesting.
First, I need to properly motivate you and.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's right before this, but actually, where it definitely is, where there's two cop cars riding side by side going down the road towards the car, and they're like, well, it's got no chance. It can't get past two of us, right? There's two cars here, right? So the car basically turns itself so quick, so it flips and bounces across the top of the, it does like a demolition sort of flip. Right? Yeah. Over the top of the two cop cars, and as it does so, it basically blows the two cop cars up. Right? They just ignite almost instantly, and then that's them. That's it. Like the cars not even get a scratch on it. It just drives down the road. They're just like, wait, okay, this car is definitely supernatural. That was like precision stunt, like explosive stuff.
Yeah, that's like Lightning McQueen shit.
Beyond that, even and I think it's right before this as well. I forgot all this was the same bit because I was expecting some of this to be later, but now that I'm thinking about it, where the sort of chubby cop like chases him up like a mountain, like he goes up this sort of circular spiral road, and he's chasing him up the mountain. But then when he comes round like a turn, like the car's like suddenly turned around and is just sitting there waiting for it like a horror movie villain, and then just sort of slowly pushes the cop car up against the ridge, and the cop's like yelling, please no, don't, but then the car just nudges him off and he tumbles and explodes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the cars do explode that's a very old school thing. The cars explode very, very easy in this.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure if it's if it's just like, hey, we think explosions are cool, or if it's like out of some power of the car that makes them explode. Yeah,
I think this all of this section is really entertaining, and it's all fun driving stuff. It's all fun stunt stuff. It's basically just a series of like, okay, here's how one cop car thinks they've got it cornered or handled, and then this is how the car gets out of it and shows who the boss really is. Right? It's that in a few different scenarios, and it's really entertaining to watch. But it does kind of hurt, I think, the climax a bit, because the climax is never as fun as any of this stuff. The climax is a lot more just like, because I see what they're trying to do with the climax. They're basically saying, oh, Brolin's on a motorbike and he can weave and he can get around. He can't be pinned in quite as easily, so he's a lot more versatile. He can lure the car into certain places, and that's fine. I get the logic of it, but it's just not as entertaining to watch. I mean, it could have been, but the way they shot it, it wasn't. Which is a shame. Yeah. But yeah, so Brolin wakes up in a hospital and they're all upset because like half the police force is dead because the cars killed them all. Ronny Cox admits that he's drunk again, and that upsets Brolin considerably. But this is where the pacing does kind of feel like it slows down. This scene goes on quite a while, I thought, as he's like talking to them, and then like he sends everyone out the room so he can talk to Ronny Cox. It does go on for a bit. And I think this is the point where you realize, oh, I don't really care about all the other characters that much, because I don't really care about you confronting Ronny Cox. Like, I don't think he was built up enough that I care about this interaction. So I do feel that this is where it starts to falter a little bit in terms of like my interest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This stuff definitely, it did feel like it slows the movie down a bit. It's not like it's horrible or painful or anything, but yeah, I just tend to not care about this kind of stuff as much. But I mean, we are getting close to a very good scene, though, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, so Brolin, right? Wade tells the other cop, the Native American cop, who I've barely mentioned, but he's been around, he's been translating, he's been one of the main cops we've been seeing throughout the movie. He asks him to stay with Miss Humphreys, like, you know, take her home to get her stuff and then take her to like my house to look after the kids. And he does. He takes her to her place, and you know, he's like, hey, how long are you going to be in there? And she's like, oh, not too long. And he's like, oh, I'm worried about my family. And she's like, you know what, yeah, you go check out your family and be back in maybe half an hour. I'll be fine inside. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So he leaves her alone. And there's a great bit here where we've seen that when they drove down the road, the car is sitting like on a sort of in the shadows off a turn somewhere down the road, and she like drops a bit of paper that has like something on it that she needs, and it sort of, the wind kind of knocks it into the middle of the crossroads in front of her house, and then she picks it up. She's just sort of this is actually quite good in the direction and the performance. She realizes, or you can tell she realizes at this moment that she's in the middle of the road, right? She's literally in the crosshairs of where like the prime place to get killed by this car is the middle of the road. And it almost made me wish more of the movie was about treating the road like it's lava. You know, it's in the same way Tremors is about not being on the ground at all. I think you could have had a bit more fun with this if there's this idea that, oh, if you're not on the road, you're safe, but you know, this moment where she realizes she's on the road, she's like, oh shit, I need to get inside quickly. Like, you know, it's a genuinely good moment of her looking scared because she realizes where she is.
And it's great setup because, yeah, it is presenting this, but then also it's gonna like pretty quickly subvert it.
Oh yeah. Because like she's like, okay, I just need to get in the house and then I'm safe. And she runs into the house. She calls Brolin on the phone, talks to Wade, and says blah 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 blah. And she's basically saying how she's on her own, but it's fine. She's in the house. She won't go outside. And as she's having this conversation, we see the car like turn its lights on and like come out from this shadowy area down the street. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out this car just lines up and then drives through the house, like just completely like flies through the front windows of her house, clearly kills her and drives out the back. And there's just so you don't really see her getting hit per se, but there's this great shot after the cars went through the house where you just see the big hole and all the wreckage, and there's like a light dangling in the middle, and you know, it's also cool because it's actually one of the few scenes in the movie that takes place at night. The stuff on the climax is kind of nighttime, but it's all shot day for night, kind of for dawn period, and it looks kind of shit. Whereas this is actual nighttime, so it actually feels really creepy and like, oh no, this was like a horror movie villain saying, no, you're not safe there. I can get to you from there. You badmouthed me. I'm coming for you. It's a great scene. I love this scene. It was great.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and yeah, they just do such a great job of, you know, setting up that spooky horror atmosphere. And you know, lots of the earlier scenes with the car in the movie, like, they're good, but you know, like, so much of it is during the day, and it's totally fine. Like, you know, it's interesting to, you know, see horror in the daylight. You know, it's something that you don't always see. And
it's surprisingly effective for being during the day as well. I need to do a good job with it for daytime. But this almost feels like it's more menacing now because he's got more of a motive, if that makes sense. Like, oh no, I'm going to come to you in the night because you've pissed me off. Well, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's just really, it's very well done. It's just very classic horror vibes, like you're saying, like, you know, the wind blowing and it just really giving this creepy, ominous atmosphere. And then, yeah, certainly the first time I watched it, I did not expect the car to just come, you know, flying through the house. I guess technically this could be something that a person could do, but this feels very like supernatural, like, you know, like a car just being able to, you know, fly through here with such like precision. It's unexpected, but it is a great like jolt. And
it's the sort of thing where if they'd done what I said, and they kind of do to an extent, but if they'd done what I said and made it that the road is unsafe, but as long as you're inside, you're safe. This would have, if they'd done that the whole movie and really hammered that home, this would have been even more effective. It was like, no, why did you think you were safe just because you were inside? The car can come through the wall.
Yeah. and again, I think the movie has done a pretty good job of, like, you know, this isn't a slasher movie where we're just, you know, we just want a body count and we want to see kills. Like, we don't really care about the characters. Like, I did genuinely like this character, so it does, you know, as much as a, you know, a cool scene it is, I do also feel a little bit of the pang of like, oh, this sucks. You know, she was a good character.
My 2 points on that are, one, I was also a little surprised. I was kind of expecting the other teacher to die, the other woman, because it felt like she was in that role of like, oh, she's kind of memorable, just enough that when she dies it'll mean something. But I do also think there's a negative here in that it kind of, like, I get the idea that, okay, this is going to like motivate Josh Brolin, or sorry, James Brolin, slip. It's going to motivate his character to like really want to go after the car. Like, he wants revenge now. But it kind of ties into what we were saying earlier about there not being enough stakes in the final, like, you know, chase and climax to get the car. Like, maybe it'd be too cliche, but it kind of feels like maybe like his kid should be somewhere where he has to, like, now we have to get the car in time or everyone in the town is doomed, or my kids are doomed, or whatever. And maybe by already killing the person that he cares about, like, maybe that wasn't the right spin for it. Like, maybe having her still alive to be in jeopardy for the client. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Like, but either way, it does feel like after this point, it fails to, like, you know, there's like, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of great moments. Like the moment when they're sort of prepping and they've got this plan to get dynamite and blow the car up once they find it, and they're going to have multiple cars with the dynamite. They're going to lure it to a ravine and blow it up. That's all fine. And they're going to use Wade on his motorbike to lure it in. That's all fine. But the last great moment of this movie really is probably when he just walks into his garage and he's walking to get something off the tool shelf or whatever. And there was a moment where I went, oh, that car in the background looks a lot like the car. And then he turns around and sees it, and it is. The car is just sitting in the back of his garage. It's a very big garage he has, by the way. It feels like a bit comically large, just so they can do this scene. But
on a cop salary.
But it's just
big of a garage.
In the background, it's just sitting there parked, and it's very much like, it's here. Don't bring the kids in. It's sitting right here. and he's like trying to like sneak around quietly, as if the car might be asleep or something. Like the car's not aware of his presence. Like that moment's really good, but that's how the chase starts, and then from there it's basically just the big climax where it's him darting around on his bike, the car chasing him, and the other cops and the asshole Amos just try to prep the dynamite for the big ravine that they're going to use to try and trap the car. And honestly, for the chase itself, I don't have a whole lot to say other than just what I've said already.
Yeah, it's a shame that it's not that more memorable. Like, yeah, all I could really say about it is like, yeah, they chase around for a bit and then blow it up with dynamite. Like,
it's I suppose it's a testament to the movie that every other scene with the car is good or memorable, and this is the only one that falls flat. But having the big ending fall flat, like you would rather one of the other scenes fall flat and not the ending,
right? Yeah,
it's a bit much. I mean, don't get me wrong. When he lures it into the ravine and it flies in, and then they trigger the dynamite, the big explosion that comes up, and you hear like almost like this like shriek of an animal in the sound design, and then you even see the flames almost make the head of a snake at one point to sort of say, oh, that was a demon, like there was a demon in there. But other than the drunk cop saying after the death of Miss Humphreys that he's like, oh, I know why it couldn't go on the consecrated ground, because it's hallowed, like that's what it is, it's a demon or something. And at the end he's like, hey, didn't you see the face in the fire? Like that was something. And Brolin's like, you know what, it doesn't matter, like it's buried under meters of concrete now and rock. Does not matter where it is or what it was, we've defeated it, and that's all that's important. So no other characters ever truly believe that it's anything other than what it is, which is funny from the perspective of the cops, because it feels like, well, if they still believe a man's in there driving it around and they've just...
They blew him.
Yeah. They just... That said, though, actually, to be fair, the one other supernatural thing that we did kind of gloss over is that there is a few scenes in the movie where cops try to shoot at the car, and no matter what, the bullets just don't hit it. It reminded me bizarrely of God Told Me To, when someone's trying to stab the guy who's going to be like the new Jesus, and like no matter what, his arm just keeps like moving to like the side of him so you can't stab him. So yeah, it reminded me of that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of funny that they just pass over being like, we got to bring this guy down, we got to arrest him, to just being like, nah, we got to dynamite. But you can't blame him. That is one sick car.
Oh yeah, the car is dangerous. Yes. So they have tried shooting at the car. It did not work. So now their only plan is to blow it up. It's just a shame that the actual sort of chase and the plan to lure the car like, I think if I had a better sense of geography, if there was some like bigger stakes, like, well, we have to stop it now, or like, I get the emotional side of it, of like, oh no, he killed the love interest of the main character, so now Brolin's character has more determination ever to get him. I just don't know if they quite sold me on that, where I was like really into the thirst for vengeance. Like, yeah, I don't know if it needed a speech where he's like, I'm going to get that bastard for what he did to her or something, like, but it felt a bit lacking. It felt like he was still acting more or less the same. He was sad at first, don't get me wrong. Like, he was distraught after the initial death, but once he was prepping for the plan, it just felt like he was just the regular old Wade again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he didn't really have motivation before. Like, his the sheriff died, and people in his town have been dying. He got hit, and it targeted his the teacher and daughters already. So it's not like, it doesn't really need the extra motivation. But
yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the problem, and I'm not blaming James Brolin for this, but maybe the problem is just that the performance doesn't sell it. And like, see if he was like acting more crazed, like he's like, oh, we're going to get this bastard, and he looked like really determined, and he was like really upset, and it was like a man possessed who's obsessed, like he has to get vengeance now. Like that might have sold like how emotionally charged like trying to get this car at the end is. Yeah, but he still feels like he's the same cool, calm cop that he was before. So it feels like the character should have been written to be more passionate now. The director should have probably directed him to be more passionate now. Instead, it feels like he's still pretty much in the same gear as he was before, and that that takes away from the emotional impact. So that's why we're asking for stakes from somewhere else, like someone, like a group of people are in danger or something. I mean, again,
like, if you compare it to Jaws with like Sheriff Brody, like there's lots of stuff going on there. Like he's, afraid of the water, and then having to go up against like, the politics of the mayor and stuff, wanting to keep the island open. Like there's stuff for him to face and overcome. Like this, I mean, I guess we don't really see much of him as a cop and stuff before, but it seems like he's like a pretty nice, well-liked guy that I'm assuming is like good at his job, and kind of just stays like that throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, Brody's overcoming a fear, so he's kind of being heroic because he's going out to help hunting the shark. It really feels like he's doing it to keep his family safe when he goes out, as well as like his sense of duty and all that. They sort of sell that quite a bit. Like I suppose they could have done a thing here where, Brolin was a great traffic cop, but he was in an accident, so maybe he's scared of riding his bike. So now he's going to overcome that and get on the bike to like take out this car at the end. That again, that would have been too similar to Jaws. Maybe like the comparisons are already too there, but to do something that similar, but. Yeah, you can see how it might have like added some like, oh no, this shows us that he's determined because he's overcoming this thing to like take it out.
Right. Yeah.
And instead, it just kind of feels like, oh no, it's just time for that part of the movie. Which I guess it's also kind of supernatural how the car gets into his garage, because like it's not like he opened the door for it.
Right. Yeah.
maybe it was sitting open. Maybe he's just he's terrible and just doesn't shut his garage door. But there he is.
And they don't show up, but if you like pan over, there's just a huge like hole in the side of the garage.
Yeah, he busts in like Mr. X. Yeah.
I would have said the Kool-Aid Man, but sure.
I mean, that wasn't a thing in the UK. I get the reference. I know of it because of the internet, but that was not a thing in the UK. So
you're missing out. I hope our listeners are paying close attention, because you'll get a bunch of Kool-Aid packets to test on the next live stream. Okay, whatever. All right, well, I think we're at the ending segments here, so let me first of all ask Tim, what was your scene of the movie? I mean, I'm gonna assume maybe it might be the same for us, but what was the teacher's name again? Humphreys?
Miss Humphreys, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, her death scene, again, just the whole setup, like we were saying, like it's just so well shot. It looks great. There's just a very creepy, spooky atmosphere to it, and it just delivers with this like really, out of nowhere surprising kill with a car just bursting through her, living room wall or whatever. So, yeah, there's actually a pretty decent amount of good scenes in the movie, but honestly, I think that would take the cake.
Yeah, the kill count does kind of rival some good slasher movie. It's not like every slasher movie that's good has that high a body count. It's pretty, comparable to a lot of them. Yeah, I have to pick the same thing. But I would emphasize the build up to it, especially like the whole thing with her like dropping the bit of paper and like realizing she's out on the road. I think it's great, and then obviously the actual payoff of the car coming in through the window, like the entire like rev up to it. Pardon the pun, is very good. So yeah, there's a lot of good scenes though. To be fair, a lot of good scenes. To be fair. All right, Tim, who was your MVP for any reason?
I mean, I think I got to give it to the titular car itself.
Oh,
I mean, I think again they just do a good job of making it feel like this entity that is cunning and is stalking like prey, and it has a sense of malice to it, and you kind of like mentioned before, just like a lot of the times when they shoot it, like. It's not always like in your face. It's kind of subtle. Like it'll be like far off, and you'll see like a little glisten of like the car in the distance. Or
I never really emphasized this when we were going through the scenes, but the first time you actually get a good look at the whole car is the scene with the marching band. It's when it comes out and does like a big sort of 180 or whatever. It's like, oh, this is what the whole thing looks like. Up until that point, they obscured it quite heavily every single time.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I think they do a really good job of portraying it. I mean, for I feel like sometimes, especially with these Jaws ripoffs, there usually be a very specific thing, like it's a car, it's a bear, it's a killer whale, it's this or that or whatever. And I don't know, a lot of times I feel like you're wanting more or whatever, but I think this very solidly delivers on the premise of like, no, this is Jaws but with a car. I think.
For me, I might have said the cinematographer, which I've never really done that before. I've always said a character / actor. However, I do think the last 20 minutes takes that away because I hate all the day for night crap. But I mean, the car itself's a good pick. It's definitely the thing that sticks out. I almost want to say Miss Humphreys. Like, I would say Brolin because Brolin's very likable and all that, but like I say, he doesn't like turn up a gear at the end. Whereas Humphreys like does some different voices when she's messing around with him at the start. She stands up in front of all the kids and badmouths the car. She's in the best scene, of course. So
it's very likable, which I think helps to really make her death stand out.
In fact, there's a little moment with her early on. There's a quick scene we didn't really talk about where both Wade and the Ronny Cox's characters, they both come to the school to check something, right? And the kids are out doing something. But there's a little moment where the principal of the school comes up to Miss Humphreys and says, "Hey, can I speak to you for a minute?" And she's like, "Sure, what's going on?" It's like, "Well, this is something that little Timmy in your, afternoon class did." And it's a drawing of Miss Humphreys, not super explicit, but clearly naked. And she's like, do you think it's healthy for a 13-year-old boy to be imagining their teacher's naked? And she just kind of shrugs and goes, "Yeah, he's 13. And I'm like, you know what? That is the right answer. He's a 13-year-old boy, and you're an attractive woman who happens to be his teacher. Of course they're all thinking about that. Of course they are. So, yeah. I'll go Miss Humphreys.
That just reminded me of this time in high school.
Where you saw your teacher naked? Tim, go on. Tell me more.
There are these two kids who are like talking in the hall, and they're talking about this one teacher that they thought was attractive, and like the one kid basically like pretty loudly said like, "Oh yeah, like I do miss blank," and like right as the teacher was walking by, and then like she was like. And then I think I don't know if he got like detention or something, but he definitely had like a talking to. Like she was, "All right, like I have to talk to you about this," but
I
seems very awkward. If I was a teacher, I would just be like, "I didn't hear that."
Yeah, I would just pretend I never heard the thing. I would just keep walking. I would not want to address it because it's not like they were actively trying to, like, if they're intentionally saying it to you, then you have to talk to them about it because they're clearly
right. Yeah, if they're sending you love letters or something, like, yeah,
but
nip it in the bud. But
I mean, even if they say it to you directly, they're clearly trying to get a reaction, and that's inappropriate. But he was saying it in what was relatively a private conversation. If you happen to overhear it, I would just ignore it, pretend you didn't, go on with your life.
Yeah.
But funny enough. All right, Tim. Yeah. Somehow that leads us on to what are you rating the car out of 10?
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it is a fun enough watch. It is almost a shame that there's a few things that just kind of ding it. Like, I think there's a few parts that slow down a bit, and again, we've said it multiple times, but the ending just doesn't really. It's not like horrible, but it doesn't go as big or crazy as you want it to, or at least
it's just not interesting or exciting to watch. So it just kind of feels like you're going through the motions till it ends.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna give it a 6.5, which I think is still a very respectable, good score. I think it's
sometimes, Tim, we're like women living together on our periods, because I'm also going 6.5. I think it would probably be a fun, great recommendation of a 7 if it wasn't for the stakes and the ending and how it looks and how it all plays out just being kind of dull. If the ending was as good as the rest of the movie, I'd be happily slapping a 7 on this baby. But as it is, 6.5.
I'd still recommend it, but it's a shame that you can't give that a little bit more enthusiastic, like, oh no, you really have to watch this. Instead, it's just like, oh no, yeah, you should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend to people who want to see more obscure movies and would go in with the right set of expectations. But like I was saying right near the start of this, there's a reason why it's not become this cult must-see gem, right? It's so close to being that, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
So, but definitely better than a lot of the other like random things you could throw on from this time period. There you go. That is The Car. So yeah, thank you to our patrons for voting and picking that. Next week on Streams After Midnight, we will be looking at a 2024 movie once again. We will be catching up on tarot. As in tarot cards, just in case that wasn't obvious from my accent.
Oh boy.
It does not look good. In fact, I sat Tim down last week and said there's like 3 or 4 movies I want to make sure we do before the October-thon, just so they're crossed off. Not because they're good or bad, although some of them definitely look bad and one might be good. I just want to get them out the way so they're done before we hit the October-thon. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see you next week for tarot.
We'll see.
So that's next time. I mentioned earlier, if you support us on Patreon or via YouTube memberships, you get bonus content such as a bonus episode, an exclusive episode once per month. Last episode we put out just for patrons was Bloody Murder, a crappy slasher movie from the year 2000, which kind of wrapped up like 3 exclusive episodes in a row that were all summery themed for the summer months. But now we're, we'll start in August now, but by the time the next one goes out, it'll be September. So we're moving on to other things. But there's a whole library now of like 40 something exclusive episodes on there you can access. They're going up on YouTube membership as well, but they're behind by a few episodes. Eventually they'll catch up and be more or less in sync. But Patreon gets you access to that. $5 and up, you get access to even more streams, which are like bonus little like top 5s, top 10s, little discussion topics we do. Just some extra conversation about horror movies that you may enjoy.
And if you're not on that, it might be a good time to get on there, because we're just about a little less than 2 months till October, where we always do lots of extra stuff. And so obviously we'll have we always have at least one bonus episode a month, but we'll have at least a few extra in October. And then I don't know, do we do more than one patron vote in
we have done in the past. I don't think we've planned for it this year for a September vote. I was going to actually talk to you about maybe letting them decide something else, but we'll talk off camera.
Okay. Well, it's a good. Well, I mean, whatever we end up doing, it'll be nice to. You might want to get signed up by September so you can have the voting privileges for that.
If there's any voting related extras, it'll be in September rather than October, so they're decided for October. But that is all stuff you can check out over on Patreon. And of course, you also get bonus content with me and David for the other movie shows. We do extra reels, which Tim guested on actually in August on the Madam Web episode. So
fans already calling it a cult classic episode.
I'm sure they are. Is that one out? Oh, that's out this week actually. So yeah, at the time of this going out, Madam Web episode of Extra Reels with Tim will be this weekend. So look forward.
People already forecasting it as a fan favorite.
Yeah, I did put a screenshot of it and said, "Hey, see you for Madam Web next month," to tease people that it was a threesome of an episode. Not to call back to Tim spreading rumors about our sexual escapades together or anything. But yeah, that is Streams After Midnight. Everyone, thank you very much for joining us. We are going to have a bunch of extra episodes in October as per usual for the October-thon. We have started recording those. We've done one so far, but by the time we get there, we should have a nice little handful done, and hopefully have a nice like 3 or 4 a week sort of schedule, including the bonus episodes for October. So look forward to all that craziness. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.